The Brown Box was run. Marcus's diaries were protected by deadly traps, but we were able to disable these traps and retrieve the diary. What we found was highly enlightening.
In essence, the Intrubé's greatest enemy was themselves. On the 23rd of May, 1859, Lucas's memoirs were released, revealing years of slave labour and drug trafficking under the Intrubé Dynasty.
2 days later, the Intrubé biological testing unit was discovered to be containing 3 Vatican cardinals, all in various states of amputation. An uproar ensued, and the Intrubé were fined 3 million. Gary, do you know where the nearest toilet is? Banging shit. What? We're still filming? What? Oh, so I just stand here? Right, okay.
A week later, the government disciplined Martins, for he rendered the cardinals was removed from the testing units.
Just 3 days after this, national protests arrived at the Intrubé state in Brazil. As you will have already worked out, it was now the 13th of January, 1891.
In the 30-year period known as the Dark Days, the Fall, or that time when it all went to pitch, Lucas had been killed, along with his 4 children, Nico, Giovanni, Ignacio, and Alexandra. All had died at the blade of another, or of an increasingly angry public, because since the corruption of Lucas was revealed in 1859, all protests were about the scandals of the Intrubé Dynasty.
The popular historian, Mr. Lamb, quotes, "Since Lucas's atheism and his writings of the poem, 'There is no God,' the wicked saith, the Intrubés lost their credibility as the protectors of the church."
But why were the family so inwardly violent?
The end of the 19th century saw a particularly destructive period for the Intrubé dynasty. Without a doubt, it stems from the motion that was passed in 1875, formally limiting the Intrubé dynasty to just 2 seats in government. Of course, all 4 of Lucas's children fought to death for a place in government. But then we also have their cousin, Marco, son of Filius, and they treated him terribly. And obviously we know this from what they did with Julius's will.
Julius left a will on his death, determining not only what possessions should go to his own sons, but what should happen once those sons died. Therefore, his will was an important item for Lucas's children, and their cousin, Marco. The matter was taken to court. In the will Lucas's children produced, Marco was to get no share of the Intrubé inheritance whatsoever, and was banished. Convinced of Lucas's children's treachery, Marco sought an ally to back his claim to the estates, the Snicket family.
The Snickets were ideal allies because they were rich, powerful, and another enemy of the Hartleys. They were leading scientists, botanists, and reptile house owners, so they were extremely useful partners in the Intrubé laboratories. Most importantly, they were proud contacts of the Balafalafa.
To be a contact of Balafalafa is a rare thing, especially among humans. See, Balafalafa was, in short, a badger.
The full history of Balafalafa could not be retold within the boundaries of this documentary, but it is enough to know that she resembled most closely a badger. Hundreds of years old, she ravaged Europe since the Middle Ages, gaining indispensable political power, fame, and in the eyes of Captain Cadbury, sex appeal, and was therefore the sort of ally the Intrubés could use, and the sort of enemy they definitely wouldn't want.
So after Marco had died, San Antonio finally returned from exile back into Italy. He was in a very good position. Public hatred towards the Intrubés debated, mostly because they were all dead except for him. He had the backing of a very, very powerful family. And a very powerful creature.
most importantly, Marco had found the real will of Julius. However, what lengths would he go to re-establish the Intrubé's power in Italy? How was the climate changing? Do the ends justify the means? Are we all born equal, or are some more equal than others? What is the differential of x squared plus 1? How do you capture a wind on the water? When does the perceptual schematic become consciousness? When does the difference engine become the search for truth? When does the personality simulation become the bitter mold of the...
Antonio was back in Italy. It turned out it didn't take much for him to reclaim the Intrubé fortune or his seat in government. All it took was an impartial hearing which had Julius's real will to hand. The wonders of the modern day judicial system.
Unfortunately, Italy wasn't quite the same anymore. The rising fascist regime and increased governmental corruption caused troubles for the Intrubés, who were attempting to hold on to their money. With limited scope for growth inside Italy, the family turned their attention outside. They expanded their business partnerships with the Snicket family into the multi-billion-dollar organization known today as VSD. Quite what the initial stand for is unknown, though experts are keen to give their hypothesis.
I believe it's vanity, sanity, and divinity.
Varnish Satan's doors.
Vasectomies since doomsday.
Very stupid dealers.
Vulvaic syphilis disorder.
Really?
Yes, I'm absolutely sure.
VSD now covers a number of companies and products, including Coca-Cola, the Polish government, and the upper atmosphere. With such financial gains abroad, the Intrubé Dynasty was finally able to see off the Hartley family without much trouble. In 1935, Antonio died, and his son Giulio took over, using an expanding foreign policy of Italy under Mussolini to further his own economic interests and so provide funding to the cause. However, things were soon to change. Driven to desperation, incest, and committing atrocities such as writing teenage vampire novels, the Hartleys found and funded a new ally, the Mafia.
They were a perfect fit, a rich American family with connections in political power, and a rising criminal organisation based in Italy and in need of funding. They were to provide the guns in the Hartley's arsenal.
I can't read. One important thing to note about the Mafia was their talent for secrecy. By 1904, they were conducting regular raids on Intrubé estates, often blaming it on local fishermen or prostitutes. How they became the subjects of so many films, books and plays is beyond me.
Giulio faced a real threat in the Mafia. It was a long time before he made the connection between the amount of funding that was suddenly appearing for the Mafia and the amount of money that the Hartleys set aside for miscellaneous investments. But eventually, it was clear for all to see, the Hartleys and the Mafia were allies.
By the time Giulio died in 1955 and his son Pedro took over, they were making serious threats. An entire estate was burned down in Perso when the Intrubés refused to hand over their gold bar supply. It all came to a head in 1959 when they took Pedro's wife, Ellen.
Sources show they promised to torture his wife for details of their bank accounts if Pedro didn't meet their demands, which, on my hierarchy of needs, is quite a good one. But if you're looking to be really effective, you want to try something more like this.
What the Mafia bosses demanded was the handover of all Intrubé property after the death of the last male Intrubé member. In other words, it was a challenge to Giulio.